Every town has its legends, its historic landmarks, and its native sons. Here in Galesburg, Illinois, we talk about Carl Sandburg, our railroad history, and the quiet strength of the Midwest. But today, we are talking about a Galesburg native whose name has been echoing through the highest halls of American justice. The governor's mansion of Oklahoma, and the social media feeds of the world's biggest celebrities. His name is Richard Glossip. For nearly 30 years, Richard sat in a windowless cell on Oklahoma's death row. He was scheduled to die 9 separate times. 3 separate times, he was served his literal last meal. Choosing his final food, saying his final goodbyes, and bracing for the lethal injection gurney. He was accused of orchestrating a horrific murder-for-hire plot, but Richard always maintained one unwavering truth. "I am an innocent man," he says. And just days ago, the unthinkable happened. Richard Glossip walked out of prison a free man, holding his wife's hand, stepping into the Oklahoma sunlight for the first time in 3 decades. And the person who cut the check to secure his immediate freedom? None other than megastar and criminal justice advocate Kim Kardashian. Pull up a chair. Today, we're tracing the journey of a kid from Galesburg who survived the ultimate nightmare. Long before he was a national headline, Richard Glossip was just a regular guy growing up right here in Galesburg, Illinois. Born in 1963, he eventually left the Midwest and headed down to Oklahoma, looking for work and a fresh start. By the late 1990s, he had worked his way up to becoming the manager of the Best Budget Inn, a motel in Oklahoma City. Richard was known as a hard worker. The motel owner, a man named Barry Van Treese, trusted him. He trusted him to assist with the property's upkeep. Richard hired a 19-year-old maintenance man named Justin Sneed. On January 7th, 1997, the Best Budget Inn became a house of horrors. Barry Van Treese was brutally beaten to death with a baseball bat inside room 102. It was a savage, bloody crime. The police immediately looked at the staff. The physical evidence pointed directly to one person, Justin Sneed, the 19-year-old maintenance man. His fingerprints were there. He was the one holding the bat. Case closed, right? Not even close. When the police interrogated Sneed, they did something dangerous. They dropped hints that they thought Sneed was too young or too dumb to pull this off alone. They suggested someone else must have masterminded it. Sneed, facing the death penalty for his life, saw an escape hatch. He cut a deal with the state. He told prosecutors that Richard Glossip, the hotel manager from Galesburg, had offered him $10,000 to kill their boss because Richard was allegedly skimming money and feared getting fired. In exchange for pointing the finger at Richard, Justin Sneed got a life sentence. Richard Glossip, who refused to sign a plea deal because he maintained he had absolutely nothing to do with it, was sentenced to death. Think about the weight of that. There was zero physical evidence connecting Richard to the murder. No DNA, no blood, no money trail. The entire case rested solely on the word of the actual killer who traded his testimony to save his own skin. For the next 20-some years, Richard Glossip lived in the shadow of the executioner. And when I say he came close to death, I mean closer than almost any inmate in modern history. In 2015, Oklahoma scheduled his execution 3 separate times. Try to put yourself in his shoes. The first time, he eats his last meal. He is prepared to die. A stay is issued at the last second. The second time, he eats his last meal again. Chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes, fish and chips, a bacon cheeseburger, and a strawberry malt. He is hours away from lethal injection when a court issues a 2-week reprieve. The third time, now this one is out of a movie. On September 30th, 2015, Richard is in the holding cell next to the execution chamber. He's been served his last meal again. The executioner is ready. The guards are standing by. But behind closed doors, chaos breaks out. Prison officials realize they have ordered the wrong execution drug. Instead of potassium chloride, they have potassium acetate. The governor steps in and halts the execution while Richard is practically waiting to be wheeled out. Richard Glossip was living a real-life Twilight Zone. But while the state of Oklahoma was trying to kill him, a massive movement was growing outside the prison walls. High-profile attorneys, international human rights groups, and eventually Hollywood stars took notice. Kim Kardashian, who has been quietly studying the law and working tirelessly for criminal justice reform, caught wind of the Glossip case. She realized what a terrifying miscarriage of justice this was. She used her massive platform of hundreds of millions of followers to scream Richard's name to the world. She funded legal efforts, met with advocates, and kept his story firmly in the public eye. And then, the ultimate breakthrough. An independent investigation ordered by a big partisan group of Oklahoma lawmakers uncovered an absolute bombshell. It turned out that the state prosecutors had hidden evidence. During the trial, the killer, Justin Sneed, testified that he had never seen a psychiatrist and wasn't on any serious psychiatric medication. But internal prosecutor notes, which had been buried for decades, proved that prosecutors knew Sneed was diagnosed as bipolar, was treated by a jail psychiatrist, and was taking lithium. They had allowed their star witness to lie on the stand to secure a death sentence against Richard. The case went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and in a stunning ruling, the highest court in the land threw out Richard Glossip's conviction and death sentence, stating his right to a fair trial had been fundamentally violated. That brings us to right now. Just days ago, an Oklahoma judge officially set a bond for Richard Glossip at $500,000 while he awaits a completely new fair trial. To walk out of jail, Richard's team needed to post 10% of that bond, $50,000 in cash. And that's where Kim Kardashian stepped up to close the loop. She immediately and graciously provided the funds to pay his bail. On Thursday, May 14th, 2026, the heavy iron doors of the Oklahoma County Detention Center opened. Richard Glossip, now 63 years old, walked out into the fresh air. He was wearing street clothes, a gray shirt and blue jeans, holding hands with his wife, Leah. As the microphones hit his face, the man who spent 29 years on the brink of death looked completely overwhelmed. He said, "I'm just thankful for my wife and my attorneys. Just happy. Really happy." But listeners, the fight isn't entirely over. Richard has to wear an electronic monitoring ankle bracelet. He can't leave the state of Oklahoma, and Oklahoma prosecutors are stubborn. They still plan to put him through a third trial, though they have officially agreed they will not pursue the death penalty this time around. But his lawyers aren't worried. They point out that after 30 years, evidence has been lost, key state witnesses have died, and the prosecution's star witness, Justin Sneed, has been exposed to the world as a liar. From a childhood in Galesburg, to 3 last meals on death row, to a bailout from Kim Kardashian, Richard Glossip is finally home in his wife's arms. The kid from Galesburg survived the system. It raises a chilling question for all of us. If it takes the United States Supreme Court, a team of pro bono elite lawyers, and one of the most famous celebrities on earth to get an innocent man off of death row, what happens to the people who don't have Kim Kardashian in their corner? Thank you for tuning in to this episode. Keep your eyes open, value your freedom, and we'll see you soon.